Oh, wow. Wow. So now I figured out why the Y chromosome is being phased out, because it was used, the Y chromosome, which is men. Men are the antibodies, the defense systems, as the antigen, basically other men or women or whatever, are trying to attack, and they're trying to see how the body defends itself or attacks itself. And so men out there in the world can be a defender or a predator, and the men, the antibodies, can be a defender or a predator against the antigen. Because I made that connection when I was looking at the pictures of the antibodies. And I remember a couple years ago when I was in the conspiracy world, and they were saying the antibodies were the mark of the beast. They looked like something like the devil. Well, I said, yeah, the devil, like the goat with the horns and everything. And then you hear the left wing demonizing the men and all that stuff. And I get that men feel attacked from the left and from some women. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's just so like complex and confusing. But when you take it down to the micro level, when you take everything down to the micro level, it is about defense or predatory. And so antibodies can be programmed. Antibodies can be programmed to be an antigen. That's what's so crazy, because then we have men out there who either are a predator or they are in defense. And you don't know who they're defending, you know who they're predating. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's all relative. Everything is relative. And so I'm just like, holy shit. It's like a eureka moment when I saw the picture of the Y chromosome and the antibodies that look exactly the same, but in the context of which they are being used and explained in, people, again, they're compartmentalized. They study antibodies in one area, they study the men in another area, and then somebody who knows how this shit's going on, they put it all together and they start making connections. And so then when I've been studying the immune system and I see the pictures of the microbes, and the X chromosome is the woman and the Y chromosome is the men, and then the antibodies are the men, the antibodies are defense. See, when we were studying the words, we, who's we? Well, me and John and a bunch of people that were going back and forth, and we're looking at antibodies, antibody. It's like anti something. It is antigenic, whatever. But when you think about it, antibodies are the defense because they are the offspring. And so when you're bearing a baby, that's all the antibodies coming together, then becoming another person that will either be in defense of its own life or it would be a predator. And then that's where you get the Charles Manson. Charles Manson was a predator, and there are some men that are programmed to be a defender, like the hero or the anti-hero. And then you play those two off each other in the movies, and so you can't tell who the real hero is, because the hero has become glamorized, or the anti-hero has become glamorized, and the hero, and it's just, oh my gosh. And so then people get confused. And so anyways, when I was watching that movie Leave the World Behind, okay, and that's, yeah, it's a blockbuster on Netflix. People have issues about it, and some people don't even get it. Like, some people don't even get what's going on. And so, and it surprises me that I see people, even in the conspiracy world I used to hang out with, that they're like just criticizing the actors and the actresses, but they don't read between the lines. But you are all part of the Illuminati, you know, pointing out all the stars that are all like Illuminati, and playing those games of the conspiracy world, with then coupled with the right-wing world or the religious community. And it could be so many different types of religions. I've encountered so many different types of religions that would teeter on extremism that I can't even tell the difference anymore between what religion is what, because it seems that they all seem to have a characteristic of extremism. So then I don't understand how they don't even get this movie. You're supposed to read between the lines. You're supposed to not take things so literal. And they didn't go into so much depth because they were not supposed to in that movie. It's supposed to be left open for someone to interpret what they think the message of the movie is. But then when I know how, when I'm in the middle of the night and I'm out there in the public and I'm taking on so much offspring because of the antigen antibody programming. What is the antigen antibody program? When I'm going out there and hanging out with people, taking on the offspring that then I have to release. If I don't release, then either, I become so clogged up, and then if I was not in the J world and I was in the mainstream, I'd be taking all these medications, causing more offspring, and then one day in the future, I become fertile. And that fertility then turns into a baby once the sexual reproduction process gets triggered, and then that's then looking for a husband or a wife or whoever. So that's why I understand them to talk about the flood in that movie. Okay, water, rain, and the end was the Friends theme. And we know how Matt Perry ended up. He ended up drowning inside of his hot tub as he was putting out the call for help called Batman/Matman. And it's all these stories that we in the conspiracy world have come to know because we've been taught how to read between the lines. But then it just surprises the hell out of me to see some of my conspiracy friends, who are not really friends, but my conspiracy people who don't even fucking get it, that just want to go and just criticize the actors, but not read between the lines. Yeah, when I wrote in there, leave the world behind, hashtag, oh wow, Netflix 2023, they say no one's pulling the strings. And then that's just another storyline, because yeah, there's always somebody pulling the strings somewhere. You pull the strings in your own world, somebody else is pulling the strings in your community, because there's always a government, then there's always like the state government, there's the federal government, and then there's the UN and the world governments. Okay, so come what may. And I put in Julia Roberts, Kevin Bacon, yeah, because those are some pretty highfalutin cast members there, and Ethan Hawke. And then there's a lesser known one from the guy from the House of Cards, and then 3 unknown actors. And so then the whole Friends theme was like weird, because it's like, I'll always be there for you. Like, what do you mean by that? When you're always there for someone, are you defending them, or are you cannibalizing them? Are you predatory? Okay, because friends can be, defending you, or they can predate you. If there's I gotta figure out a word for that, or how to say that in another part of speech. But I mean, friends can be predatory, or friends can be your defense systems. And so the ending, like Perry drowning in the water mucus, and are we to end up like Matt Perry drowning in our mucus or water from the floods? And we hear then Tennessee going through all those tornadoes that they went through. And so hence the Friends theme song. Flood, mycoplasma, pneumonia, teeth falling out, people falling apart, people breaking bones, people are dying. I experienced somebody in my world that I was pretty close to died, and it sucks. I hadn't seen that person in at least 5 years, but they were there for me when I was younger, and there for me when I was older. And then I hadn't seen them in 5 years, and now they're dead, they're gone. And it's just like, I mean, I'm sad, but it's like, I was already prepared for this. I already said, be prepared for this even a couple of years ago. It's gonna get fucking bad, and it's already bad, okay? And so I've grieved for all the people that I know are gonna die in the future, probably sooner than later, already now, and now it's just dealing with the reality that things are going to happen exponentially, acceleratingly faster. If that's even a word to use, acceleratingly. So anyway, so there's definitely a lot of messages in that movie that if you were in the conspiracy world like you were with me, and we're back and forth, even in the right-wing Christian, born-again Christian, or the Hebrews, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, that movie should have been a fucking clue. That movie should have been woken your ass up, not criticize the actors. Like, Jesus Christ. Okay, so defend her, defender. Predate her, predator. Predate means exist or happen before something else. So when you're a predator against someone, you're basically stealing their resources in body, mind, and spirit, and even physically, financially. And so it's a predate. Oh, interesting. For example, if you move into a house that already has a ghost that already owns it, and then you go in there, that ghost predates you, and he will go and try to cannibalize you and take over. That's why people, when they move into houses that already been occupied by a ghost or a really aggressive entity, now it's a fight between the dead world and the alive world. And that's a little bit crazy. And so when I was talking about microphages and macrophages, and so a macrophage is like a huge white blood cell that holds all the toxins that are the antigen. And sometimes those macrophages hold the antigen that are replicating because it's not strong enough. Well, it's not strong enough to be released because the body isn't releasing. So then it converts that macrophage into an enemy. That's why people get all these cancers and crap, because they're not releasing the demons. And so let me read this. Function, also known as a big eater cells, macrophages, ingest pathogens, cancer cells, and microscopic debris, which are then destroyed, degraded, and recycled with harsh chemicals and enzymes. But what is disease? Unfortunately, macrophages sometimes fail to destroy ingested pathogens, which then replicate inside the macrophage and hide from other immune responses. Macrophages also play a large role in controlling inflammation, and their malfunctions can impact inflammatory diseases. And so macrophages develop in the bone marrow as monocytes, okay, which circulate in the bloodstream and then settle down in other body tissues. Macrophages are given different names depending on the type of tissue they are found in. For example, they are called microglia in the central nervous system and osteoclasts in the bone. See, when they have all these different names, people have then no connection to what they actually are, what they actually do. And so then it's such like a Tower of Babel. That's why understanding what these words mean is going to and the context, but even then, so there's macrophages and microphages. And so then there's phagocytes. Now, when I was thinking like the word FAG, and then people in the Britain call cigarettes FAG, and then there's PHAGOCYTES, and then there's actual like energy or behaviors that are pretty much similar. Phagocytes are white blood cells that protect the body by ingesting and destroying foreign particles. They are part of the immune system. Phagocyte, American pronunciation, phagocyte. And so what's a microphage? A small phagocytic white blood cell present in our blood and lymph. It is a polymorphonuclear leukocyte that cannot replicate. Okay? It lives for only a few days. So it's one of those somatic cells that have a very short life, right? And macrophages are present in large numbers. Hence, there are large reserves of macrophages in the bone marrow. Besides, these phagocytes start life in the bone marrow. Unlike macrophages, they're not stationed at certain places. They are constantly circulating within our blood. And so you can think of those as somatic cells, and they start life in the bone marrow, but they don't sustain it because they always get changed out and all that shit. Because remember, there's the germline cell and then there's somatic cells. And the somatic cells get 50 chances at life, and sometimes the 50 chances are used up in different ways. And oh gosh, then it becomes this whole exponence, okay? And so that's why I did that whole video on the mycoplasma, the antibodies and the Y-chromosome, because people have to understand now why the Y chromosome is being phased out. Because once women are able to hold on to the defense systems and not be so predatory, so they're not attacking, they're just defending, but they're peaceful, then what are men used for unless men start balancing out the Y and the X? It's not that we're turning men into women, it's just that we've turned men into either defenders, and we program them to be defenders like heroes, or we program them to be predators, and sometimes they're defenders, or sometimes they're predators in the beginning and then defenders later on, and they're balancing both those two out, and then you can't even tell anymore, and then it just becomes holy crap. So at some point in the future, when we balance out the X and the Ys, it'll be then, that's why you're seeing women look kind of like men, but you don't want them to turn into total men because they could be predatory or defending all the time, and that also is predatory when you're always on defense, because then you're going to go and hunt somebody because you have a projection that they're going to do something, so you're actually preempting a defense when you don't need to. And that's what happens out there in the population, is that people think someone is hunting them, and so they are projecting that that person is the enemy. That's what happened with me. I had all these people who had so much of the Y chromosome in their body thinking I'm the enemy and hunting me and trying to destroy me. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not the one. I'm not your enemy here. Stop hunting me. I'm just trying to help you release those fucking demons so they don't fucking kill you. But again, you can't save people from themselves. They have to save themselves to even get it. And so fertility at the micro level turns into fertility at the macro level when it becomes out of control. So when the immune system encounters bacteria, it triggers an immune response to help the body fight the infection. So the response includes white blood cells. The body produces white blood cells to fight the infection. Those cells identify the germ and produce antibodies to fight it. And so, yeah, when you go into war, you become a white blood cell and you're trying to defend against something that's across the way because it might come and attack you. Or if they're coming to you into your house and you have to be a white blood cell and go and be an antibody against that antigen. That's what basically you as a host is. You're dealing with antigen, developing antibodies as your offspring. And then and when you hold so much diversity in the body, so much offspring, then it turns into sexual reproduction. And then you're going to get inseminated or you're going to inseminate somebody else. And so then men and women become predatory when relative to what they are hunting or defending against. And so that's why predator and prey are interchangeable, because they're constantly hunting or they're constantly on defense and are constantly a victim or constantly destroying. And it's just like, oh my God, it's freaking insane. And so then complement proteins. These proteins attack the bacteria. Cytokines. Macrophages release cytokines that increase the permeability of blood vessels, allowing fluid and proteins to pass into the tissues. Since people have sluggish immune systems, they harbor all of these different antibodies in conflict with each other until it triggers sexual reproduction. And so a compilation of everything above turns into a child once the host finds something to inseminate or be inseminated. Why do antibodies look like Y-chromosomes? Maybe they're very similar with similar intention. And I realized, yes, at the end of the two ends of the top of the Y are the antigen programming, and then the rest of the Y and even the stem is the antibody. And so the antigen gets programmed to go and then attack. And then, if of course, it has its own defense system from anything attacking it, as it's latching onto something, uploading the information. And then that's what a guy does. He latches onto a girl and uploads information, or to a man relative to your sexual, orientation. And even women, when they're French kissing or they're doing stuff, and she becomes a phagocyte, taking in the pathogens and all that stuff and processing it. And so, yeah, men and women and everyone and whatever, binary, non-binary, are phagocytes, macrophages, and it's just now like, holy shit, it's a fucking mess. And so now you see how predatory people can be when they're looking to infect someone with their body, mind, spirit, religion, whatever, and that's called antigen. Antibodies are defense mechanisms, and when women have a stronger defense system, they won't need men to defend them if the Y chromosome are going to the wayside. And so that's why everything is connected. And that's why, holy crap, it's not like we're turning boys into girls. It's just the fact that the Y chromosome is being phased out, because now we have better food and better ways of, doing shit. And so we're not trying to breed predators or defenders. You hold that inside. It doesn't have to turn into a person. But we have bred defenders and predators, even in women too, because it's all hormones. That's all it is. Testosterone, estrogen, the antibodies, the antigen. And I couldn't tell you when they began this, okay? We could say 6,000 years ago. We can go all the way back to freaking 10,000 when Sumer became the first civilization, and the aliens that came down to develop mankind after he got to a certain point, then played with the Y and the X and all that stuff. I couldn't tell you when this started, and I just know that we've sustained this for thousands of years, ever since, even before the Bible, or when the Bible began. Okay, and again, there's extremism in the Middle East on both ends. And so now the system, since we are now Rosicrucian, and it's not just run by Jews, okay, people have this assumption that the world's run by Jews. No, Rosicrucian is a compilation of not only the Jewish mystics, but the Christian Gnostics, the Hermetics, Egypt, and Greek mythology, plus then, of course, it's all part of the Mesopotamia and Sumer. Okay, so we're being run now by a compilation of everybody. And so this is why you must understand that it's not about extremism. Now it's about balancing out everybody's belief systems and the positive and negative. And so when I was pointing out candida, because that was what I latched onto, because I had that problem was candida, plus then the mycoplasma and all the co-infections, then I realized, even though you come from one specific place, like let's say Judaism, Christianity, Hindu, or candida, or any kind of autoimmune disorder, then you have to realize that that's not the enemy. That's just a symptom of a larger problem. Okay? All the religions, all the diseases, all the politics and science bullshit that we have taken sides of on are symptoms of a larger problem called imbalances. And so you never attack candida, you never attack any of your diseases, you never cure anything. You have to release the excessive yeast. That's what candida is. So I was again focusing on candida, and that's why I did that whole thing in the beginning with the J World called it, exposing the lies, candida, weaponized fungus, mainstream mutiny and mutancy. And then I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I had to evolve from that, but that was the platform I came from. Just like being Jewish was a platform I came from. Just like being a female was a platform I came from. But then you have to evolve those platforms. That's not the actual foundation. That was just a symptom of a larger problem. Okay, and so the host needs to learn how to regulate the immune system so nothing gets out of control. All the remedies people give to each other weaponize the immune system against the host. All the diets weaponize food against the host. People think food is poison. They can't handle change or evolution or nutrients. And they're constantly taking on new energies, gas, fighting to overthrow the host. And so when you're out there hanging out with people, taking on all the offspring or all the antigen developing antibodies, those are the offspring that if you don't release those demons, you turn obese or you get so skinny or you become fertile and you want to get pregnant or be inseminated or be a predator and go hunt someone to go and inseminate. And that's what's going on. That's why the system is now giving you an option to stay home, stay safe, have things delivered to you, and even work from home if possible. And so when a person finally gets out of control, get control of their body, and the host releases the demons, the person is very careful going out in public, especially during climate change. Okay, so what we've been doing has been normalized in a slower frequency environment, and we didn't really see the connections. We couldn't really see the correlation equals causation because it was a slower frequency. But when you have a faster frequency with less time in between diagnosable conditions and other things, then you start making the connections because things are happening faster at a faster rate. And so then you realize that you don't want to be out there with people because you're taking on so much offspring that you're going to have to go and release, or it'll be a cancer, disease, chronic illness, or even a baby. Okay? And so then every new demon guest the host takes on, one must release that guest that night or the next morning. Because when a person starts collecting guests in their body, the guest tends to want to take over and overthrow the host. That's called possession. But first the guest sucks the life out of the host and do what they do, controlling the host's emotions. And then things start breaking down. That's why it's like an exorcism in my world, because you're releasing all those guests you have allowed in your body to overthrow or to overstay their welcome. And so it's a battle. It's a battle to the death. You're either going to win releasing that demon plus all the other demons, or those guests are going to win and take over the host and then jump to the next person. That's why death is catching. And then you don't want to be out in public if you don't want to have, and if you don't have to, but unless you have to be, unless you're so strong and you're being compensated very well for being out there taking on all those offspring, or the antigen developing into offspring. People who are so strong out in public must find ways to release those demons when they have the chance, especially when they're sick. Okay? If not, then it's a cumulative effect that will destroy them. And so just like out there, when you're training your kid to be something, you can train the guest in your body, but we don't want them to take up residence all the time, developing so many children who don't evolve to be something purposeful. So when you have 10 kids and only 5 of them are actually doing something for the community, the other 5 are just tearing up the community, that's what's going on, is that we allow people to harbor so much diversity that they're developing so many offspring that are then causing and wreaking havoc inside their infrastructure. And so maybe you have 10 kids, but 5 of them are like already purposed for parts of the body, but the other 5 are developing in their own families, causing then more chaos and then becoming a useless eater. They're just gobbling up every resource in that community in the body, that colony in the body, and that's causing the person to go a little haywire. And so what goes on inside your gut is going on right now out in the public square. out in your community. We have people who are purposed to do something to help the community, and we have people we have to deal with who tear up the community, that steal stuff, that vandalize stuff, that hunt other humans. We have bullies out there. We have so many people that are not purposed for anything useful, and so we have then this war between the haves and the have-nots, and those who are purposed for something, and those who are not, and then those who take so much resources from their community and cause people to then use more resources. And so it just becomes a war. And so the host must give a time limit to the guests who attempt to overstay their welcome. Every evolutionary change your body goes through is like changing out a president and his cabinet. So you have the immortal germline cells as a president, and the somatic cells, the ones that can be replicated at least 50 times or double itself 50 times. And then that's it. And that's the cabinet. And so the host must give a time limit to the guests who attempt to overstay their welcome. Every evolutionary change your body goes through is like changing out a president and his cabinet. But the people must be open to change, not fight against the host, and definitely not resist. And the host, like myself, must strategize how to utilize all strengths from the guests in their body. And so, yeah, you are the host. I am the host. But what's controlling me? Who's controlling me? Who's controlling you? What's controlling you? Or are you sharing space? It's in a nice, peaceful way. And so my co-plasma, like my cohort, my co-chair, my co-partner, whatever you want to call it, my co-plasma can work for you or against you relative to how it was trained and what you've trained it to do. So is it defending you, or is it predatory against you? And that's why people die, because they have mycoplasmas, co-infections, that are working against them. And that's why people have died in my world. That's why people have died out there in the world, because they're holding on to so much co-infection, so many mycoplasmas working against them, not defending them. Then they also become predatory through sex, love, politics, religion, and science. Then they get on their platitudes and they turn into all the spiritual healers, or wanting to go and spiritualize, heals everybody. And then also cannibalize them, taking their money for remedies, telling them not to do something, telling them not to eat food. And then you see everyone out there is a predator that's trying to take away someone's pain, someone's suffering, trying to envelop them in a web-like consistence called mycoplasmic love that then just immobilizes that person so they can't defend themselves, and then they suck the life out of them like a black widow. Oh yeah, we have a lot of women that are like that, and a lot of men that are like that. They suck the love out of you or suck the life out of you through their web-like consistency, viscous mucus called love, and then try to take away your pain, basically anesthetize you so they can keep sucking the life out of you. And so then we have people who act like black widows that, like I said, put everything to sleep and then suck the life out of them. And that's where a lot of your friends and family are like that. They have immobilized your immune system so you can't feel shit, drugging you while they're sucking the life out of you. In cannabis, in alcohol, in food mitigation, in distractions. And then you're like, holy crap, the world out there, like humans, act no different than some of these insects and spiders that are predatory. And so mycoplasma can work for you or against you relative to how it was trained and what you have trained it to do. And so are you training your body to destroy itself, or are you willing to release those demons and eat all food? And do you think you can handle to release those demons? Wow, because yet sometimes people experience aggressive energy. And so talk to your lead exorcist, Dr. So-and-so. So whenever I cough, sneeze, and blow my nose and poop a lot, it's energetic because the body has to push out those demons. And I know I am fighting the battle of releasing. I will not harbor those demons out there trying to take over my body, mind, and spirit, which is why the internet is immortality. A simple block and delete is so much better than trying to cough out somebody else's mucus, becoming too influential. And so if people flaunt their wealth and influence out there, pleasure traveling all over the place in this environment, more power to them. Thank them for their service. In my opinion, if one had to work out there in public, I would not have a social life, because during my time off, I would be releasing those demons and sleeping and eating. And if one has children, I don't know how you're going to do it. You would need help, because those kids are going to work against you. They're antibodies. Okay? They were your antibodies, your defense system that turned into antigen. And now that you release them, but now they're in your house and they're working against you every single day. Those are antigen that you have to build defense against your own children. You have to build defense against your own husband, your own wife, your own friends and family. They're all antigen out there. We have birthed, so many things are working against us. Which is why I say, I don't recommend your children having children, because will any of them survive each other? One must choose. And so I said, my co-infection, my co-plasma. Why do people pass away? Too much diversity, fighting to overthrow the host. The war weakens the person and the host is compromised. Okay, so my co-plasma, pneumonia, and adenovirus as the two dominant pathogens with positive rates of 96.7% and 79.1% respectively. And so, yeah, that's when people get obese, that's the adenovirus. Then they get pneumonia. So that's what I'm saying. When you're a bigger person, you are harboring, when you're like literally an obese person, you are harboring so much of those co-infections that once they trigger, it's any question if you'll survive. That's why you have to start releasing those demons. In the way I have my book, you got to start pulling out that crap that is causing then the out of balance in the bacteria that's causing the mycoplasma to mirror itself. Okay? And so all these infections that are out there that we'll have, and they have adenovirus, they have other types of viruses, then the mycoplasma is just copying it. It's mimicking. So it's making everything more aggressive, stronger. And so, yeah, HIV has a combination of cofactors selling the progression of HIV diseases. So mycoplasmas act as cofactors achieving or accelerating the progression of HIV disease. Okay. I mean, every single disease, every single pathogenesis is because it's being exponentially multiplied with the mycoplasma. And so, and what's interesting is right now, let me switch gears real quick. U.S. abandons Israel. U.S. support ends. Breaking news. So I don't know how true this is, but somebody said that by the end of the year, Israel must stop its war against Palestine. But Israel's saying that it needs 2 more months to be able to win. I don't know how you calculate that. Why would you say you need 2 more months? Why 2 months? Why not 3 months or a year or 5 days? What's up with this 2 months? So all I'm going to say is, no matter what, everyone who's extreme, they're being regulated. Extremism is being regulated in everything, in politics, religion, science, in males and females, in all the religions, in all the continents, in all the countries, and it's going to be a new world order. And so I just would not be surprised if what we thought was going to happen in the Middle East may be something very different. I'm not surprised about anything. Not surprised at all. So whatever happens, happens. But what did I say? Oh yeah, about third generation rule. Like I said, that the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims are 3 generations. And so right now, everyone's saying like, oh gosh, we're supporting Israel, but not Palestine and all that stuff. But remember, even Israelis can be really, or Jewish people can be really extreme. Muslim people can be really extreme. Palestinian people can be really extreme. Christians can be very extreme. So now we have 3 generations that have so many generations of extremism. And so if you're part of what you'd be like the 3rd generation, like Palestine or Muslim, you have the chance to be a 1st generation and stay alive. Because remember the 3 generation rule, the 1st generation builds it, the 2nd generation maintains it, 3rd generation destroys it. And so if you happen to be Muslim in your 1st generation and you stay alive, you don't have to be like the 3rd generation. You can actually stay alive and maintain your life. So could a Jewish person, so could a Christian person, so could anyone. So just because you might be categorized as a 3rd generation religion, you could be a 1st generation person and a 2nd generation person and stay alive. Okay? And so stay alive, be a 1st gen forever. Be responsible for your own world. And so I said, boomers and Gen X, it's time for the thick skin for the next 7 years, because I'm telling you, it'll be 7 years that we're going to be seeing some really crazy shit. And so, yeah, somebody dying in my world. I'm just like, wow. Yeah, I was hungry yesterday, and I'm pretty, like, wired. I would say wired, but higher energy. And I don't know where it comes from. I got up early enough, but I was making breakfast and doing a bunch of stuff, and serving my husband food and stuff. And he's just like, what the hell? You're like on crack. I mean, not literally, but like, I'm just like, bam, bam, bam. And I thought he was leaving this afternoon, but he's not. He's leaving sometime at some point. But anyway, so I figured I'd just do this right now. But that's what I was waiting till the afternoon, but that's fine. And so the whole thing was, see my hair, it's black. There's a white, like one like white hair here, maybe, and then a few every so often. But I'm thinking like that white hair is the old world and the black hair is the new world. And so I'm balancing out the old world of the old Hayflick programming of the 50 chances to redouble itself. And then now I'm taking on the new programming, which is all the sickness. Okay. And so I'm not growing out all this white hair. There's just a few strands. So in a lot of ways, when you think about it, that's balanced out both the old and the new. I didn't even think of it that way because I was thinking everything was so black and white. But no, the white hair is the release of the old of the programming, and it's decaying on some level and all that. But there's dark hair programming out there. I mean, I'm not around a bunch of red hair people. Maybe over time, if I was around a bunch of red haired people, would I be turning red hair? Who knows? But I mean, it just depends on what's the most influential, dominant phenotype in my community. And I'm around such a mishmash of people, I couldn't tell you. But if I was in like an Irish background area, a bunch of red hair people, yeah, and yes, none of my new growth is rare white. It's very dark layers. Yeah. So I'm just assuming that the dark hair is the dominant phenotypical characteristic, Audrey. Very good. And so wind is winding up or winding down. Wind in the rain, then the tornadoes and the hurricanes. Wind, wind, right? And so I said, food is your arsenal. Strategy is your survival. Relative to how one characterizes food, it always has been used as a defense or a weapon. And so I always use food as a defense, not a weapon. Food gives me that mental clarity. And the system U knows who is intolerant, and the intolerant people will instill fear of food as well as make you allergic with their remedies. That's the health and wellness world. Okay? And so if you are that intolerant, then you'll look for those who are intolerant and look for their remedies and look for all of their food fears and latch on to them. And so if you're not intolerant, you can handle the food, then you'll be getting out of the health and wellness world because they're starving you and also weaponize the food supply against you through the fears and then making you allergic to them because all the remedies do that. All right, you're bringing in antigen. The body has to build a defense system against it called antibody because you weaponize food with all those aggressive properties, like taking lemon oil or orange extract or any of these remedies that people do use that's using food as medicine. And so the body has to defend itself until you can purge out that programming. And that takes a minute. And so like minds always look for like minds, hence the group mentality. People look for their reflection. Some of you have already weaponized the food supply against your friends and family, projecting intolerances onto everyone who will listen. And of course, I couldn't convert you from that because people love their friends and family. So I just observe. What else am I going to fucking do? So all the earthquakes everywhere. And so here's the thing about jumping from one world to another. You can't just be like jumping from one world to another. When you see the people that do like in the movies, the time machines where they're going from one time to another, it's not easy like that. You can't just go into a time machine and then jump from one time to another. Because there is a conditioning process to go from one world to another. No different than going from hot to cold and cold to hot when it comes to extreme temperatures. Just like you're experiencing now with climate change, with the temperatures and the barometric pressure going up and down so aggressively fast. And so when you think about a pre-apocalyptic world, everyone's like building their bunkers and shelters with, filtration systems and all that stuff. And they're storing food like the Great Depression. And so they're afraid that some big, huge nuclear bomb or something's going to go and decimate. I mean, it potentially could happen, but being in a bunker is not going to fucking help you. If you can't even handle right now the climate change that's going on, imagine when there is a nuclear war and then all the radioactive dust settles all around your bunker. And maybe you have a really good filtration system in your bunker. You would not be able to walk outside of your bunker at all. And you'd hope that your filtration system will last for however long that you're allowed to live, or your body's allowed to be able to live, or as long as the food is able to, as long as whatever food supply is left that's in your bunker. You couldn't leave your bunker because you would have to breathe in the radioactive dust, which is the new world. And some people would not survive that energy conversion, that assimilation. That's why if you can't handle what's going on right now during this climate change, building a bunker would just be your tomb. You couldn't leave that bubble. And so the psychological operations of bunkers makes you think that you'd be able to leave your bunker and put all this money into all this canning and building these shelters that are not going to do shit for you because you won't be able to handle it. Shit. Again, during this climate change, you think you're going to be able to handle walking out of your bunker when that radioactive dust is all over the place, everywhere? It's like, oh my God. And so that's why I'm just like, right now I'm thinking everything is funny at this point. Not really, but it is and it isn't. And so, the Human Genome Database. Okay? The Genome Database is a public repository of data of human genes, clones, STSs, polymorphisms, and maps. Genome database entries are highly cross-linked to each other, to literature, citations, and to entries into other databases, including the sequence databases, OMIM, and the Mouse Genome Database. And so they do mention clones in that database. Yes, the vaccines are part of that database. Pfizer is, okay. As they are percentages of what you would be exposed to in your environment in small percentages. But again, everyone's different in how they assimilate to their environment. I get exposed to all types of people. I don't ask him or her if they had any kind of therapy because it doesn't matter. You are the evolution to somebody else. I am the evolution to you. Can I handle your microbes? Can you handle my microbes? And since I have an activated immune system, I don't want to hang out with too many diverse people. I get the DNA from the world through intermediaries, the air, wind, and water. I walk into a crowded supermarket, into a restaurant. My God, my body goes through an evolutionary process overnight. When those tornadoes came through to Tennessee, not only did people get killed because of the debris, but now they've brought in so much of the diversity of microbes from other places into that county. So there you go. And so my body goes through an evolutionary process overnight. So now in this environment, I limit on how much exposure I have to large groups of people. Because it's a bitch evolving now. I'm telling you, releasing those demons, pooping and coughing and sneezing and blowing my nose. Oh, that's crazy. Even my husband was saying his head was full of stuff. He's feeling, a little bit of congested, but he's doing okay. And so, yes, every single time you cure disease, you develop an offspring that could turn into a baby or cancer, tumor, or a diagnosable condition. And again, you be turned into a predator or a prey. You either develop a Y antibody or even a baby. And so then also the hormones, when a woman is fertile and she's trying to have a baby and she has higher levels of testosterone, which means all this defense, right? Because when people are angry, they're in defense mode. And so when you're angry in defense mode, that's a higher testosterone. That would then turn out to be a Y baby, a boy. And when her hormone levels of estrogen are more at the surface, less testosterone, she's not so in defense, she's a bit calmer, she'll have girls. That's where you get the boys and girls from. Defense. And hormones, testosterone is your defense system. I fucking get it. And it can also, when you have so much of it, it can also be predatory. Holy shit. And so that's why I said my pyramid is mycoplasma. Nature, nurture, and then it's the microbes, it's the plants, and it's also the insects and the animals. Okay? And so, yeah. I'm gonna not read all this. I'm not gonna read that. I have a lot of energy right now, but I'm just like, at this point I'll be belaboring the point, but now you get it, what mycoplasma is. And the turbocancers come from the amount of mycoplasma, the co-infections that are stuck in your immune system that aren't allowed to release. And in this environment, if you seriously want to survive, one is going to have to figure out how to release those demons without compromising their immune system. One's going to have to do that. And if they don't want to, if they're too far gone, it's going to be too much, it's going to take them down too much, they're not looking forward to feeling pain and they can't afford to be down, then you just live out your life and thank you for your service. Have a good life. But now I understand why the Y-chromosome is potentially going to be leaving. Men are the antibodies, or they're the predators, or they're the defense system. The antigen is anything that tries to attack. The predators are antigen. And they can be men and women, relative to what kind of system, what kind of biochemistry is predominant at the surface. And that's why the system is cleaning everything up, because there are men and women who hold so much of that Y programming, so much of that defense, that they become predatory. And so, yeah. It's free. I don't even know, I understand how even the whole climate change, well, the climate change is causing so much fertility that when people don't release, I guess that's how they figured out, is that raise the heat, the environment is raising the heat because of so many people, and there's also other things that are going on, then the fertility will destroy the person because they can't get ahead of it. And it's the whole laws of decay, thermodynamics. And when you're starving and when you're causing more fertility in your body, you won't survive. And so in the future, there'll be men out there, but they won't be so predatory, full of the Y. They'll have both balance of estrogen and testosterone. So they're not on defense and they're not always going after somebody. A calm society is not always on defense or trying to be a predator. Because again, those two are interchangeable. Yeah, I mean, you're not trying to inseminate someone with your tongue or with some object or with your penis. You're not trying to infect someone intentionally through desire, through whatever. It's fucking crazy, man. I don't even know what to think or say. I'm just whatever. All right, I'm gonna go think about this, but I'm just like, whew.